that Juventus sacked Massimo Allegri. This is a man who's brought them so much success during his tenure as coach. An incredible resume, Gab. I suppose the big question is why they sack him.
Well, look, clearly what happened against Ajax was humiliating. It angered a lot of supporters. Andrea Agnelli came out afterwards and said, "Don't worry, Max Allegri's staying." And then something happened in that month, and it happened very, very publicly. There was all this talk about the meeting to plan for next year. How would that go? Certainly, my understanding is that at that meeting, Allegri talked about extending his contract. He had 1 year to run, and he talked about maybe having more control on the signings. Some suggestions that he's not fully comfortable with this sort of Juventus all-in with all the veterans. And by the same token, Andrea Agnelli's view was, look, we've had 2 years. You know what the problem is. You've said what the problem is. We don't attack enough. You're the coach. It hasn't worked out. We're not going to give you a big new contract and give you a salary bump as well. And as for the players, we do things a certain way here. So I think ultimately that is what eventually led to the split and for Allegri to walk away. And I think also Allegri seemed really worn down, actually. It's really been a rough season for him, despite his 5th league title.
Right decision?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes things just run their course. It seems like the Juventus players, in and Allegri's saying, isn't really getting through. And yes, you look at his CV and you think, why would you let a guy like that go? But the truth is, the football they're playing isn't particularly attractive. They signed Ronaldo to do better in the Champions League. They go out to huge underdogs. I think it's just time for a change. And by the way, the change is good for him as much as Juventus.
It feels like this relationship had been deteriorating for a while. And as much success as Juventus has had domestically, it also felt like the fact that they were not able to get over the hump and win one of those finals that they went to in Champions League, that somehow that was a shot at Allegri. Mm-hmm. And that somehow that reflected upon him as he's not the guy to take us to the next level. And that feeling seemed to be there, just kind of simmering, kind of marinating. You add on top of that the fact that you lose out to Ajax, and I just think that brings the death nail.
I think also Juventus are looking around Europe and they're looking at people like Klopp and Guardiola, and their teams are playing attacking, exciting football. Now, yeah, you can say, well, it's the Italian tradition not to be like that, but they've got to move on. And the next question you're going to ask me was, who is the next answer to the puzzle? I don't actually have that.
The answer to the puzzle, the question.
Well, I know you're going to ask me. I'm saying this, but I don't have an answer who that dynamic coach would be, because there doesn't seem to be one ready available. But it just seems they want to move on, and Allegri can't give them what they're looking for.
It just seems like it has been stale now for a while. And it's going nowhere. And it's in any relationship, when things get stale, people got to go in different directions. And I do agree with Stevie that although this may seem harsh to some and unfair to some for Allegri, I do think that he's going to land on his feet somewhere else. Right. And actually this break may be good both for him and Juventus.
So, as Stevie put it so eloquently.
Yes. The puzzle, the question, the answer, the what?
Have Juve got a replacement lined up already?
It's a good question. I'm not sure that they do, or if they do, it's really something in the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think the thing at Juventus is, do they make that, Stevie touched upon it there, all the top sides in Europe, almost all of them are playing this attacking football, the high press, committing people forward. Do they go for a coach like that who can also win? And so obviously you get into names like Pep Guardiola, who was asked about it again today for the umpteenth time. And by the way, no, he's not coming. Pochettino, Klopp, guys like that, guys that Stevie mentioned. But those guys you're not going to get. And also those guys mean making a transition. And if you make a transition, you might have a transition year where maybe you don't win, you're not as dominant. So then do you go for a safer pair of hands for a guy who, maybe is Allegri light, somebody like Simone Inzaghi, for example, at Lazio? He's been linked too. Do you look at bringing back Antonio Conte, and without forgetting why he left in the first place? Do you look at a guy like Gasperini, maybe closer to the sort of attacking football that they crave? My guess is they're not going to make the transition to, all-out fancy attacking football, that they're going to go for another man manager because they've committed so much money to so many veterans in the team. The window of opportunity is there with Cristiano Ronaldo. It's not going to stay open forever. So I think they're going to go in that direction. But at this stage, it's an educated guess. I think we'll know more tomorrow.
If they go in that suggested direction, is it the right thing to do? Or would you, as Gab say, right, this year, don't expect too much, but in the future, in the big picture?
No, because the big picture doesn't include Cristiano Ronaldo. And you made that move to Cristiano Ronaldo because you're saying, all right, this is the guy that is going to take us over the top. And so now you're banking and you're putting everything in the middle and saying, you know what, we're going all in because Ronaldo's here. And then if you're pushing everything in, and it's because Ronaldo's here, but then you're going to say, look, this is a transition year. Yep. It doesn't quite work. It's two different philosophies. You're going one way or the other, and at that point, you're going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, with the players they have right now, it's kind of square pegs and round holes. They need a team with the players they have that are solid and structured, not open, attacking and flowing. It just wouldn't work with the group of players they have right now.
But you mentioned it, they want to be competing at the top. They want to play attractive football.
But they still have to win. Gab said that. They still have to win. And so you can't go from one to the other without sacrificing something. And they ain't sacrificing winning.
It is, of course, the penultimate round of matches in Italy this weekend. It will be Allegri's final match at home in charge of Juventus. A big one as well. Atalanta, of course, going for that big place in the Champions League. It's Atalanta against Juve at the weekend.